I'm Hannah.
I'm not Hanna.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas,
where we talk about all your favorite scary movies.
And this week, we are joined by our friends at the podcast Twice the Terror.
Woo! Hello!
Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in the house at the same time.
Let's go.
And you know, I'm from Pittsburgh.
Oh, shut up. Where are you from?
Yeah. I'm Gibsonia area, like North Hills, sort of. Hampton Township, technically.
Yeah, I live in Verona, which is basically right behind the zoo.
Okay, I know exactly what it is. I didn't realize that. That's funny.
Yeah, it's like
I went to Pitt, but
yeah, we met in Pittsburgh.
Oh, see, we bring the state together.
And I was gonna say, with the intense rivalries, somebody has to do it, and I think it's our show. They're gonna bridge the gap between Philly and Pitt.
Fantastic. So, you guys want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Kat, do you want to
Well,
take
I'm
it over?
Kat, apparently. Yeah, I'm Kat.
I'm Ryan, and we're Twice the Terror. And
basically, we have a show that's like a morning zoo show, but everything horror. We talk about movies, ghosts, haunted shit, spooky nonsense all around.
Yeah, pretty much any topic you could kind of want to cover. Imagine that, but just kind of chaos incarnate with, two people just kind of rambling on. And if that sounds interesting to you, you can check us out. Yeah, Twice the Terror is our show, and we're very happy to be here. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for coming on. We're very excited to discuss our movie today, which, if I didn't already say it, is Saw.
Oh, yeah.
So Saw came out in 2004. It's directed by James Wan and written by Lee Wynell, starring Lee Wynell, Carrie Elwes, and Danny Glover. So you guys have seen Saw before this watch through, right? Yeah.
I watched it this morning.
For the first time? Or
yeah, have you never seen it?
I saw it when it first came out in 2004, and I have not watched it since. I did watch a couple. I know, I did. I watched a couple of the other ones. I've seen like Saw 2 and Saw 3, but this is my first time rewatching Saw since the first time I've seen Saw.
Did you see
Oh
it?
my gosh.
Oh, so did you see it in theaters in 2004?
I did not. No, we made it.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I think when it came out on DVD or something. Like I saw it when it originally. I don't remember what day it came out, but I remember when it came out on DVD, we got a hold of it.
Exciting. I was 8 when it came out. So wait, yeah, I was.
Yes, we were 8. I think I saw it for the first time with you in college.
We watched all of them.
And then when I watched all of them, and I've seen Saw like 4 or 5 times now at this point.
I watched it with my mom initially, I think. And we actually just watched it with my mom again. For this rewatch.
Really?
She was visiting, so shout out to her. She listens. And she told me, she thought the first time she watched it, she was alone and had no idea what she was like getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So why she had me as a child. Well, I don't know how old I was, watch it. I don't know. But that was our thing. And then her and I remember went and watched all of them in like preparation for the 7th one, and then went and rented that when it came out on DVD to watch. So her and I watched them all with my mom, and I watched them all with Hannah. And you've seen all of them except Jigsaw.
What weird movies to watch with your mom?
Yep.
Yeah, I was like 12, I think, when it came out. And my dad let me watch anything. There's no limits.
Yeah, I would have been, you said 2004, right? I think I was in high school when I first saw it, because I would have been 14. So I would have been right around either within a year or so, probably of it coming out was when I first saw it. Yeah. And I remember it was one of those films, and I feel like this happens a lot, where it's one of those films that was hyped up for being so disturbing, you know what I mean, like so hyper violent and everything, and we'll get into it, but there's really very little violence in the first Saw. Like it's actually very restrained in what it chooses to show.
A lot of the gore is off camera, to be completely honest.
That's something I wanted to talk about as well, so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, what I think is really interesting when doing like a little bit of background research for the episode is that Wan and Wynell had both said it's actually a pretty leisurely paced thriller. They were not planning to make a horror movie when they made this movie, and it was actually like all of the marketing that they felt turned it into a horror movie.
That makes sense. Yeah, James Wan is one of those guys where he just seems to like. The way I look at his movies is like he's a filmmaker that I absolutely love, but I can't say there's a whole bunch of his movies that I absolutely love, which is interesting. I know like I listened to your Insidious episode a few days ago and stuff, and I was listening, and Matt, I was on your side, like totally that like.
Let's go.
Yeah, just kind of like it doesn't work for me. Conjuring's kind of the same. I think Conjuring's better, but it's still kind of the same way. Like really, the only James Wan films that I absolutely love are the original Saw. I really like Dead Silence. I know it's a film a lot of people hate, but I love that movie. I am a defender of Malignant as well. Which
hell yes.
Yes.
No, I am too. I love Malignant.
The Professor Quirrell ending. Like,
dude, Malignant
shit.
Give me a giallo mixed with Basket Case, and that's exactly what that movie is, and I love it for it. It's just so it's bonkers insane.
In my unprofessional opinion, I think of James Wan and Wanell as they're farmers in my idea. And what they do is they take an idea and they milk that motherfucker dry.
You have a point.
Usually it's not them. Usually it's them passing it off to somebody else to milk it.
And I think that's the thing is they're so good at. This is the film in James Wan's entire like filmography. I think Malignant aside, because that's kind of like this weird balance. But this is the film that feels the least like a James Wan movie, and I think that's probably intentional. You know, it was a calling card movie essentially for them. You know, they did the short film. Him and Wanell did the short film in college that this was kind of turned into the feature length version of, and. Everything else he's kind of done since then has either kind of been your classic kind of ghost story or horror story, and a lot of like those like jump scare stings, a lot of like that sort of atmosphere, gothic, you know, some more style. And this is so not that. It's kind of in the vein more of Seven, or you know, just kind of like we said, a thriller as opposed to a straight up like ghost horror supernatural story.
You know, though, it does have a ton of Wanisms in the way that it's edited, though.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh god. Rewatching this, I was like, if any movie feels like the early 2000s,
it's actually incredible, though. I love his goofy editing style, and I think it like works so well in this one.
The like sped up cartoon shit that they do.
What I also thought was funny was, Ryan, when you mentioned Seven, is because they were very inspired by Seven as well when they made this, which clearly we can see. I thought, when I was looking at the background, I thought it was so fun because, you know, we know this was their first movie. They had originally had $30,000 to spend on the film, but then the script, as it developed, they were like, fuck, we need more money. So their like agent was like, you should go to LA and try and get some funding, and they were like, I don't think we can because we can't afford to travel. But eventually they did, and that is when they made the short film of the reverse bear trap for $5,000 to help sell the movie. So eventually their eventual budget was between $1 and $1.2 million. Harry Elwes, his total salary, he came out and later said that his total salary for the movie was $2,587. And some like royalties, but
yeah, if you look at that movie, like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, that's still a pretty low budget, but like, I also gotta wonder where that money went. I feel like that's a movie that's almost all entirely in one location, and you could have shot that for like $30,000. You know, it's two guys in a room for 75-80% of the movie, and then the rest is like, you know, in people's, you know, you get some shots in the hospital, but like Saw was notorious, that entire franchise, and the first one is included in that, for like not using locations. They built sets, you know, so it's always like just, you know, your 4 basic plywood walls that they would kind of just paint and redecorate. So you gotta wonder, it's like, where did the money go for Saw? I just don't know.
Where's the money, Lebowski?
Where's the money, Lebowski? Like,
correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't James Wan have a house that he had built specifically for filming? Because it's the same house from Insidious and The Conjuring and Malignant. Like, I think he has like a filming house that he just uses.
Does he really?
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm maybe this is a conspiracy theory that I've concocted in my own brain.
James Wan doesn't want to leave his house, so he built one.
If you're making that up, it's completely fine because I make stuff up on the show all the time.
All the time.
No, it's fact now. According to us, we said it here. Who on the internet would lie to you?
Do we want to jump 15-second summaries then? Since that was experience expectations.
Yeah. Jump straight into 15-second summaries. Matt, why don't you go first?
Well, I was not prepared.
I know, that's why
All
you're
right.
going
We have
first.
4 people that have to go. This is crazy.
Skip me.
Oh, geez. No, it's fine.
All right. Go.
2 guys wake up in a bathroom, and then the one guy saws his foot off. That's all I got. 5 seconds. Let's go.
Stellar.
I didn't have anything good for that one.
Detailed.
Not detailed. That's what happened.
Fantastic.
You don't have to worry about any of the flashbacks.
True. All right, Kat, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, go.
A boomer wants to talk to the manager of cancer, who's Wesley from Princess Bride, because his tumor is inoperable. So Wesley and the film screenwriter learned that the boomer is torturing them because they did not live, laugh, love enough, because these kids today are too ungrateful.
That was perfect. Wow. You wrote that one.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Cheating. All right, I like it though. If it's that good, you're allowed to cheat, I guess.
Yeah. That was excellent. Are you ready, Ryan?
I'll give it a shot. All right.
All right.
Here we go. Angry cancer patient is feeling like people are ungrateful for their lives, and so devises ways to tell them that their life is more important than they're treating it, and he does it in very gruesome ways.
Perfect. A perfect 15.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
Love it. Do you want to do one, Hannah?
I can.
Are you ready? Go.
According to Old Man, most people are so ungrateful to be alive, and if he did this to me, I'd be especially ungrateful.
There you go.
Like,
Old Man yells at
swear to
clouds.
God. Yeah.
It is. It's kind of an Abe Simpson, like, damn you kids.
And I love that he's so much more petty in this one than the rest of them. I feel like they try to do revisionism with this character and be like, oh, he only kills bad people. And this one, it's like, these guys didn't even do anything that bad. Like, right. Adam's just doing his job.
Yeah, Adam is exactly. He's just trying to make a living, and like Dr. Gordon is just like, he's a jerk, and he's like, he's cheating on his wife, and he's just but like ultimately when you come down to like later sequels where like people are like, actually murdering people or like losing people millions of dollars and like feeding on the poor and stuff, like it seems like totally like small potatoes to start here, and then
and don't forget about Lincoln Park. Their crime was being racist, and they killed them, made him rip his skin off.
I guess that one I'm okay with.
In the 7th, I know, but it was so crazy. You were just like, there's a really funny
That's the one I haven't seen, right?
No, you've seen 7. That's the last one.
Blacked it.
There's just like a really funny Jigsaw line where it's like, you and your friends are racists. And it's like the way he says it. It's like so.
Matt, are you saying that racism is
No,
funny?
of course not. I'm saying that.
It's like he's like so upset about this band being racist, and it's like, I hope no one tells this guy about Reddit.
Yeah. But it is. I like this one. I want to know what Zepp did too. I don't think they even tell us.
No.
They don't, and I was so butthurt about that because
it's not in his tape. Doesn't he?
We don't really hear his tape.
He turns his tape on, and then it ends. It basically is like, here are the rules, and then they cut it.
Yeah,
I feel like my beef is like, okay, yes, the doctor is cheating on his wife, but like that's not worthy of being murdered over, and like neither is hating your job in the case of Adam. Like, if he was going to torture people, he should have picked people like, I don't know, people who hurt dogs or like people who double park. Like, go after someone who's actually bothering someone.
Well, and I think it's so funny because I used to, like, I like most people, I used to say, the first Saw is the best. The first Saw is the best. Until my recent rewatch, because I watched a couple of them in a row, and I actually think Saw 2 is a better movie than Saw 1 on rewatch. I don't
think that's that hot of a take.
I think I might.
I've heard that recently a couple times.
I love Saw 2. I need to rewatch it again to decide, but Saw 2 is usually like my number 2 behind the first one.
Yeah, so. It's the Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2 situation, right? Where it's like the original is the one that sets the tone and everything, but the sequel is actually a superior movie in the grand scheme of things.
We're both Friday the 13th haters, so that it doesn't say much to...
But I've only seen the first one, so my opinion...
Oh, you've only seen the first Friday the 13th?
Yeah, she's only seen that one.
That's the only one I've seen. I'm okay with that. I hated it.
Takes Manhattan will really turn that around for you.
Jason Takes Manhattan. I'm a Jason Takes Manhattan fan.
I remember from your episode, I was like, what is going on here?
Oh, there is no such thing as bad opinions. As much as I like to like hum and haw over Ryan loving the third of a series or something, I think we both have equally questionable taste. So
It's true, and that's a better pitch than our actual pitch for the podcast.
it is
A show with questionable taste.
yeah.
Well,
The
we have
only-
2 Malignant fans here, so.
Not, because I'm not.
We're in danger. We're in danger,
Do
girl.
you want me to do the actual full plot summary right now, or should I wait and do that?
No, do it just like speed run it.
Speedrun? Okay, so I messed up and forgot to edit down my plot summary. So I'm going to be reading the entire Wikipedia plot summary as fast as I can without looking at it beforehand.
So
That's
Really
competitive.
totally fine.
Are you guys ready for it?
No.
Rock and roll. Let's do this.
All right. I'm a little nervous. All right, here we go. Starting now. A photographer named Adam awakens in a dilapidated bathtub with his ankle chained to a pipe. Across the room is oncologist Dr. Lawrence Gordon, also chained. Between them, the body of a apparent suicide victim holding a revolver and a micro cassette recorder. Both men find a tape in their pockets, and Adam retrieves the recorder. Adam's tape urges him to survival. Gordon's tape orders him to kill Adam by 6 o'clock, or his wife Allison and daughter Diana will be killed. Adam finds the bag containing 2 hacksaws inside the toilet. Both men try to saw through their chains, but Adam's saw breaks. Gordon realizes that the saws are not intended for the chains, but to cut their feet, and identifies their captor as the Jigsaw Killer, a serial killer testing the victim's will to survive through lethal traps referred to as games, who Gordon knows about because he was once a suspect. 5 months prior, Gordon was discussing the terminal brain cancer of John Kramer, was interrogated by detectives David Tapp and Stephen Singh, who found his pen light at the scene of one of Jigsaw's games. Gordon's alibi cleared him, but he agreed to view the testimony of heroin addict Amanda Young, the only known survivor of one of Jigsaw's traps, who had been forced to kill and disembowel a man to obtain a key to free herself from a reverse bear trap strapped to her face. Tapp and Singh later found Jigsaw's warehouse using the videotape from Amanda's game. There they approached Jigsaw and saved a man from a trap, but Jigsaw injured Tapp and escaped. Singh pursued Jigsaw down a hallway, but in doing so accidentally triggered a shotgun trap which killed him. In the present, Allison and Dan are held captive in their apartment as their captor watches Adam and Gordon through a hidden camera. The house is simultaneously watched by Tapp, who after being discharged from the police following Singh's death has become obsessed with the Jigsaw case and remains convinced that Gordon is the killer. Meanwhile, Gordon finds a box containing 2 cigarettes, a lighter, and a one-way cell phone. He recounts his abduction in a parking garage by a pig-masked figure. Adam recalls his own abduction when he returned home to find a puppet in his dark room where he stored photos of Gordon. Allison, held at gunpoint, calls her husband and warns him not to believe Adam. Adam admits to Gordon that he was paid by Tapp to spy on him and reveals his knowledge of Gordon's affair with one of his medical students whom he had visited the night he was abducted. Gordon deduces that the affair is the reason why he's being tested. Adam finds a photo of Allison and Diana's captors, whom Gordon identifies as Zepp Hindle, a hospital orderly. At 6 o'clock, Zepp, seeing that Gordon has not killed Adam, moves to murder Allison and Diana, but Allison frees herself and fights him. The struggle attracts Tapp's attention, and he saves Allison and Diana before chasing Zepp to the sewers, where he's shot in the chest after a brief fight. Gordon, only aware of the gunshots and screaming, is shocked and loses reach of the cell phone. In desperation, he saws off his foot and shoots Adam with the corpse revolver. Zepp enters the room to kill Gordon, but Adam, having survived the gunshot, bludgeons it to death with a toilet tank lid. Gordon crawls out of the bathroom to find help while Adam searches Zepp's body for a key. He finds another tape which reveals that Zepp was just another victim of Jigsaw following rules to obtain an antidote for selecting poison in his body. The corpse in the room rises. It turns out to be John Kramer, who is the real Jigsaw killer. John tells Adam that the key to his chain was in the bathtub. It went down the drain when Adam had first awakened and drained the water. Adam attempts to shoot John with Zepp's gun, but John electrically shocks him through his chain. He exits the bathroom. John says, "Game over," before sealing the door, leaving Adam to die. That was really hard.
That was
And you
fantastic.
prepared 0 amount.
Oh, shit.
Pretty good.
That was, I could edit that down to like half of that. But
Yeah.
there we
it's
go.
alright.
There's
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Could we just
No, no, no.
discuss how useless Danny Glover's character is?
In the whole movie.
Because
You could
I
kind
feel like he doesn't add that much.
Oh, you mean to the actual, like the.
The plot.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah, there's other than like coming to the rescue of
Allison
Gordon's
and
wife
Diana.
and stuff, like there's not a whole lot he does other than just kind of like be there and be kind of like crazy and be like a name for the movie, right? Because as much as like we know Carrie Elways from Princess Bride and things like that, I wouldn't say he's a name that necessarily sells a movie anymore. So, Danny Glover is a name that people would at least recognize. So it was a way to kind of get somebody in the movie. But you're absolutely right in that, like, there's a lot of that in this movie of like stuff you don't really need that could have just been taken out and shortened. And you can kind of feel them stretching things to maintain a feature length runtime to some degree, Just my thought.
I feel like the only purpose he actually served is as a way of holding back Zepp. Like, he was a distraction for Zepp to create that added tension to get to the sewer bathroom shithole that they were trapped in. But even then, it's like Allison had her own handled, with Zepp. It could have been that she chases after him, and it was her and Zepp that were the ones fighting. Like, yeah, we probably could have done with one less character.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to defend him.
Okay. Go for it.
I'm going to jump in. I like his story actually a lot. I think what it does for us is it grounds Jigsaw as a killer in reality, because there's like actually police hunting this serial killer. And I really enjoy kind of seeing this obsession with him and like kind of like delving into just madness, trying to find him losing his job because he lost his partner. I don't know. That kind of works for me. I agree near the end. It's like, I don't really care about him saving her, but I enjoyed seeing that side of it as like, oh no, people know that this killer is out here doing this. And I think like adds a little bit there. I also recently watched Zodiac, and I really just enjoyed seeing a character like lose their mind trying to solve a murder that they, or multiple murders that were difficult. And maybe that's why I felt a little partial towards it.
I think it's also tough too, right? Because we're looking at it through like a lens of now there being 10 Saw movies, right? And so many of them deal with the side plot is always about like a corrupt cop or like, like some sort of police procedural element to it. And so I think it's hard to like distance from that stuff and just specifically look at like, this was the movie as it came out, and put yourself back in that place of like, having never seen Saw. You know what I mean? Because we know that ultimately it's not leading to anything, kind of like his character. But if it was a first watch, you don't know that he's not gonna lead to something bigger, or you don't know that Zepp isn't really the mastermind or things like that. Like, it's such an impressive twist when we get there, that it's kind of, because Saw became known for its twists, it's kind of hard to like look at that and still just remember how solid of a film it is and not like kind of pick it apart to death.
What would have saved that character in a multitude of ways, but still, what would have saved that character for me, because I agree that I liked his backstory and I like the story about like it really solidifies Jigsaw as like a killer, but it would have been better if Tap had actually figured out that John Kramer was Jigsaw. And then he dies with that information. So, like, he could have been stopped. But, the killer got to the cop first.
That is a good point, right? Like, the idea that he's been so obsessive over that, and he thinks it's one thing and it's not. It would have been interesting if we, the audience, aren't clued into that. But he figures it out, and so like we're kind of waiting for that big reveal, and like you said, he dies, and so we're like kind of left
like the culmination of his life's work, and then he just dies with the information, doesn't really get to do it.
He actually doesn't die. Fun fact is that he is the lead of the Saw video game that takes place after the movie.
Which I am, to be fair, I defend that game as well. It's actually not that bad of a game.
I've never played it. I think I watched it on YouTube as a kid.
It's fun. I mean, it's a puzzle horror game with like light combat elements that are kind of clunky, but it's that very kind of like mid to late 2000s game that it's a fun extension of the universe. As a fan of these movies, which get absolutely. Sorry, apologies. I don't know if you could pick that up on mic. There was a car just driving down my street with a horn blaring.
Our dog's throwing toys around too, so it happens.
Extremely spooky.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's a series that has gotten kind of more and more bonkers as it's gone. But they've never, with the exception of maybe 7, I feel like they all kind of have their merits to some degree. You know what I mean? You know kind of what you're getting when you get a Saw movie. I enjoy all of them, to be honest. Yeah. Even like, I think
Jigsaw is one of my least favorite, and I even still enjoy parts of that.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with, and I'm sorry if we're jumping around because I don't want to jump to the end, but a lot of that has to do with Tobin Bell and his performance as Jigsaw. As John Kramer.
Let's talk about that soul pod.
I could do a 4-hour episode just talking about the entire Saw universe and where their missteps were, because killing him off was the worst decision that they made.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But that's a podcast for another time. So I think I got to get Hannah to get us back on the rails here.
A little bit.
Where are we at?
So we skipped over scream count and hide count. So I don't know if you guys hid or screamed at all during this movie. I know on our end of things, there was no screaming because that's almost
No, you had one. Or was that a different movie?
100% me. That was not this movie. The screaming is 100% me 100% of the time, but there were no screams for this. But I did hide 3 times, and all 3 times was them showing traps. I don't like them. I cannot watch them. I like the thriller part of the movie. I don't want to see the dude crawling through barbed wire or like her with her. Yeah, like the reverse bear trap. Like, I don't want to look at it. So I'm one of those rare people who watches all of the movies and keeps their eyes closed for all of the gory parts.
Were there any hides and screams on your side?
No screams for me. I think the only time I hid was when he went to saw off his foot, but it was then I realized they weren't going to really show it. And I want to point out this fucker is a doctor and he did that shit so wrong. Like, where's your tourniquet? What the fuck are you doing? Like,
he ties his shirt.
Do you even surgery, bro?
But poorly.
Yeah.
So and not at like an artery.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And then he's like I get that he's like trying to save his family and stuff, but like even if you do survive this, like the gangrene, my boy, you're fucked.
I love what they say. I guess it's revealed like in between movies or something that he like burned his
not until the 7th movie.
Stub on like a radiator or something.
No, he does. I'm off the rails again, but I remember being a kid and before the 7th movie came out, even maybe it was like before the 4th movie, I was watching YouTube videos about like, oh, he's alive, he's the one doing the surgeries and all this stuff. And then it ended up being there like the eye surgery one he did with the key. Everybody was right. And in the 7th movie, that's the opening of the 7th movie is him crawling and burning his, cauterizing his leg on some hot pipe, so like right outside the room.
Did something right, but also it makes no sense for him to join his buddy Jigsaw.
I'm not arguing with it.
Fine.
We could, if we picked apart all the problems, like you said, I think we'd be here all day because I could just do an entire 20,000 word essay on all the problems I saw. 7.
I could do a bunch of essays on why I like it though too. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of as like I haven't seen the other Saw movies because I haven't really kept up with the series. I'm trying to I'm only horse blinders, only this Saw.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for just this one, then, what about this movie do you like?
Well,
what really works for you?
I really love the puzzle aspect. Yeah, I really liked that this was a more cerebral type of killer. Plus, it heightens the danger. It heightens the thrill of the movie where, even if these characters are shitbags, you kind of start rooting for them because you feel empathy, obviously for them.
I love the scale of the movie, too. Like I said, I think it's a very... For a thriller, for a horror movie, for anything, like I said, putting all the sequels aside for this movie, I love the fact that it's very much just like I said, it's 2 guys in a room for the majority of the film, and I think that really works. Some performances aside, because we'll get to stuff that doesn't work, but like I think their kind of connection and trying to piece things together, that's the most interesting stuff in the film. I think once you kind of get flashbacks or you step outside, it's to develop things, but we start losing it a little bit. I think it's just keeping those guys contained is really fascinating. I also love, that scene, to get really specific, that scene with Adam in his dark room, like when the lights go out and he's using his camera, is such a well-crafted scene. Like that is Wan at some of his best, just kind of like building tension and ratcheting it up and up and up until you almost can't take it anymore. And then we get the reveal of the pig mask, which is just, again, self-contained, not knowing what it is like, what the hell is going on in this movie, and it's so well done. I really, really love that scene.
That is one of my favorite scenes too. I feel like it genuinely scares the shit out of me. I remember the first time watching this movie, I definitely hid for like the entirety of Adam walking around his apartment, taking pictures, trying to see it on flash.
Mm-hmm.
I also, one of the things I love about this movie is just how like gritty and grimy it feels. Like you really feel like you're there, like you can feel the dirt and the sweat on your own skin because it looks fucking disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is just like the set. Part of that is like the makeup and everything. And part of that I just feel like is the film style. And James Wan has actually said that due to the budget constraints, it ended up being more gritty and rough around the edges than they had planned on. And I feel like it works so well. Like, I can't imagine this movie any other way. I don't know what you were going for, but this works.
Tom Bellissimo did a fantastic job for special effects and set.
I have a bunch of good things I want to say about it. I've been looking at my notes, so
go for it. Unload.
I was going to say I completely agree with the grime, and my hot take about this movie is that it is the closest I think we ever got to a like spiritual successor to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I think might be a crazy thing to say, but I think in terms of that like gritty and grimy and disgusting feeling, it really like feels more like that than I think most other movies I've seen that have tried to replicate it do.
Yeah, that texture, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, it's not as good as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'm sorry, but like at least it's going for that. I was gonna say that the goofy camera work is great. I love that.
So
all the insane transitions and the Juanisms, I love. It just like works. Carrie L should be in more stuff. I'm just reading my notes off. Agreed with that. There are parts where he's just so bad in this movie and I don't care. Or Carrie L Wes, I keep saying it wrong. Want him.
His acting is so B-movie, but I mean, so is 1L, and like he was insistent that he act in this movie.
Yeah, it's definitely I mean, Carrie always is a actor who's been acting for a long time, but it almost has this student film feel to it. You know what I mean? Like performances are rough, like emotions are like weirdly heightened at times. I mean, there's lines that are not supposed, like that line Zepp has where he's like, "I'm gonna kill your husband now, Mrs. Gordon," is one of the funniest
cackled.
lines. Yes,
I cackled at that part.
There's certain deliveries that are just off in this movie, just ever so slightly.
There's a lot of weird stuff. I think another one I wrote was that the dead body twist is dumb as fuck and it's awesome. Like it literally does not matter at all, and I love it anyway. It's incredible. It's like he just gets up and he's like, it's in the bathtub and walks out. And that whole ending montage just goes hard. Like the whole thing, I just love the way it's filmed. I feel like you don't see anything like that. It's uncommon to see a montage that insane. And it like kind of makes up for. I find there's a couple moments in this film that like drag right around like middle to like before it gets kind of crazy at the end, and this like makes up for all of it for me.
I feel like all of the shots that you're talking about that are like very crazy Juanisms, they bring out my anxiety, which is what the movie is trying to do. So as much as they might look insane and make me dizzy, it's the point.
Yes.
So I'm vibing with it. I'm cool with it. And to the point about some of the lines being wackadoos, part of that I think was also the filming constraints, because they filmed this so fast and with so little money that lines they got like 3 takes and they were like, well, it's gonna have to work, like we don't have time for reshoots.
And I've one more important thing to say that we all touched on is that they nailed all the iconography in the first movie. You talk about that scene with the Flash, that's the first time we hear the laugh, right? The laugh, it's in this movie. The song, we don't really hear it till the end. They used all of them, they nailed. The doll.
Yeah.
The doll was the first time we saw it, and what was the other one?
Pig masks.
Oh yeah, pig masks, and then his voice. Like everything that they would ride on for the rest of the series, they nailed for this first one. I thought that's really impressive.
Absolutely. It's the stuff that works over everything. I mean, it's also like this is like riding this weird wave that started in the early 2000s of really like nihilistic filmmaking. We had that a lot. I mean, not to get like, too deep with it, but like after like 9/11 and like stuff like that, we had this like weird range of films for like 10 years that were all like super nihilistic, angry at the world kind of stuff. And there hadn't really been a movie like this. Yes, of course, it's influenced by like Seven and other films of that nature, but like
Cube.
It is also
Cube.
Cube. Yeah, absolutely. Like,
also, you hit our bingo card talking about post 9/11 horror movies because I said that exact same thing.
Yeah.
So we're on the same page. Yeah, I tried to explain it to Hannah. I was like, there's this period where everything was just super mean, and it was post 9/11. So I think you're making me smile because I was like, he gets it.
Absolutely. And so because of that, the film works. Like you said, despite all its flaws, like I think overall as a package, it still really works well as a thriller. And it's in a weird way, it's gruesome enough, but not so gruesome that you can't show it to somebody who's not into horror movies. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't show them like Devil's Rejects, but you might show them Saw. And it's that same kind of like nihilistic tone, but more palatable to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, one of the things I really like is that when you have the scene of like Gordon chopping off his foot or Adam beating Zepp to death with the toilet cover lid, you don't really see that. You see them. You see their emotion and their reaction to it. And I think it makes it it's like much more powerful to see like their horror and what they are forced to do to survive this.
Speaking of like,
I like being able to keep my eyes on the screen. So that's a bonus for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, like, speaking of like emotions and them reacting to things, another point in the movie where I kind of like inadvertently giggled was when Gordon can hear his wife and Zepp, like she's fighting for her life on the other end of the phone. And it's like, they show these really intense action shots of her and Zepp and Tap, and they're all fighting and shooting. And then you just cut to Carrie Elwes on the ground, like, like just sob. Like, I get he's sad, but he's just sobbing like an idiot. And I'm like, Gordon, man.
Yeah.
My man's is struggling. He's had a rough day, okay?
He really
has some emotional whiplash in this movie. Where that scene where it's that scene right before that he answers the phone and he's like screaming, and then he hears his wife's voice and he's like, "Honey," like he just changes on a dime. It's this like weird like moment. But you
say he can't get a leg up?
But then
put him in more movies. I'm going to keep saying it. He's awesome.
Yeah, it's it's a fascinating little film, and obviously it captured a lot of people's minds because we're now on the 10th movie in
he figured something out. He got the algorithm and he is working it.
So and I apologize, sorry for derailing things too much, but do you feel like in the pantheon of Wan films, like where does this kind of like sit?
Oh,
you're gonna break Matt's brain. I'm
sorry, Matt.
Above Insidious.
yeah, no shit for you. I love Insidious because it's my first ever horror movie, but like I would also put it above Insidious. But I still like The Conjuring more, I think. And for reasons why, listen to our episode on The Conjuring. Because we go real in depth. What was that, Kat?
I'm sorry. I was like, I'm compelled to agree with you. Like, I would say I would put it not as good as The Conjuring, for sure, but I would say it's above Insidious.
What about you, Matt?
Where do you put Malignant?
See,
That's what I'm struggling with.
I have a lot of mixed feelings about Malignant. Like, I definitely was too hard on it when we covered it, but at the same time, there's a lot about it that I don't like. Like, I do think tonally it's a little all over the place, and I think that its messaging is extremely fucked up. If you think about like what it's trying to say, it's all a lot of like insensitive boomer takes, honestly. And I'm just not for that.
Yeah.
So, but it like, yeah, I don't know.
All right, here's my thought. Of all of Wan's movies, this is easily the most influential and will probably remain that.
Yes.
It's not as good as The Conjuring. I don't know how I feel comparing it to Malignant, and it's better than Insidious. So it's somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
I have not seen Dead Silence.
Oh yeah, me
Really?
too.
Oh, you guys got to cover Dead Silence then.
I'd like to, because I remember seeing trailers for it as a kid and them giving me nightmares. So I never watched it.
It is, I will say, I won't say too much. It is a flawed movie, but it is super underrated. And I think it's got a very cool atmosphere to it. So I'll say no more, but definitely check out Dead Silence for sure.
It's on the list for sure. Because I want to cover all Wan movies and then do like a specific Wan ranking episode.
I can't do it right now with Saw and Malignant. I feel like all the goofy shit in Saw is turned up to 11 in Malignant, and I love that.
It's because of I feel like it's Malignant works because it's Wan embracing both sides of his career and also flipping a big bird to the people who like his like later half of his career. You know what I mean? To some degree, in terms of like being like, you think I can only make these kind of movies? Well, prepare for like the biggest B movie you've ever seen. Like if Frank Henenlotter made a giant budget film, it would be Malignant, sort of thing.
We're on the page. You'll have to listen to our Malignant episode, because I think I said we're saying the exact same stuff.
Just one giant ad for our previous
Malignant
episode.
I know, it makes me happy.
It's okay.
I'm happy to hear you say. I was like, I said that.
That was his own in that, like, our guest was kind of in the middle of where we both sit, which is loves Malignant, doesn't hate but does not like, but can appreciate some of it, and he was kind of sitting on the fence. So I think Matt,
which is uncommon for Malignant. There's no fence sitters. You either love it or hate it. So.
But that's not what we're talking about.
Yes, I'm sorry. You got me excited. Your take on it got me excited about it.
No, you're okay. I'm sorry. I derailed us. So
it's
I don't
fine. I do it too.
It was a fair question, and I was going to bring it up eventually. So
favorite scenes now?
Yeah, let's do favorite scenes.
Okay, and then we'll go to what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Favorite scene.
I'll be quick. I know mine. It's the ending montage.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
There's plenty of things I could pick, but you just feel like invigorated when this movie ends. I'm hype.
Yeah.
Like it's like a happy, like, I don't know why I shouldn't be happy, but seeing him just slam that door on Adam and like the montage of all the hello and says every single name, just incredible, like little montage, like music video filmmaking.
Yeah.
And I love it.
The specific flash in my mind too is Adam again smashing his head in with the toilet lid. Like that onward, just because there's so much like emotion and fear there, and I feel like he actually does some good acting in that moment. And then from there on with the twists and the music, oh my god.
And him just getting up.
And actually seeing Tobin Bell.
It's so dumb. I love it.
Yeah. It is. I have to agree with you guys. Like, as much as I love, like I said, the scene with Adam and his camera and stuff,
yeah.
Like that ending is like, when you think of Saw, like, to me, that's one of the first things I think of is him like getting up off the ground. And like you said, that shot of him slamming the door and just kind of it fading to black and hearing Adam like scream while the credits like kind of start is just so it leaves you on the perfect note for that movie. And like everything just falls into place. It pieces itself together perfectly, and any flaws the movie had, you kind of forget them because you're just like, everything just wraps up in this perfect little bow. It's so good. Yeah.
What about you, Kat?
I don't want to be like, I don't want to agree with everybody and say that the montage.
Yeah.
You're welcome to. We just move on to the next part.
Yeah, it's like my favorite part of any movie is when the math starts mathin', and I'm like, oh, finally.
Yeah.
The pieces fall together, if you will.
So what don't we like?
Or what didn't work?
Oof. Okay, so Amanda,
She's
right?
ready.
The most extreme form of AA you could imagine. I feel like Amanda was probably one of, and I'm not saying she deserved it. I feel like every person that he tortured was someone who is, suffering with some sort of mental illness or depression. Yeah. Again, it would have been better if he had like gone after people who don't respect life in the sense of like they take lives or they torture other people. But no, he was going after people who are struggling. So Amanda, who's in the craziest form of AA possible, has to use a fucking penknife to cut the key out of. He said the man was dead, but the man was definitely not dead.
No.
And I was watching her with this penknife. I'm like, damn, it would have been faster if he gave her a rubber chicken. Like, there's no way she's gonna like. She's hacking for her life. But I thought that is again another like iconic scene that people associate with the films is that reverse bear trap headpiece. Like I've been seeing that. Like I think that's a TikTok fucking filter.
Yeah,
right now.
Well, and to speak to that, Kat, like it's such a weird movie to watch because again, we now know the established rules of Jigsaw. But in this first film, like that's not the case. He just flat out lies in that tape. Like, you know, we're supposed to believe that Jigsaw has his own kind of like morals and he sticks to them. But like, he literally is like, the man is dead. And he's like, no, he's not. Like, he's very clearly alive. And like, like you said, we talked about earlier, like the people he picks and stuff. It's like, there's this weird ambiguity to his character in the first film that, you know, obviously you're never supposed to side with Jigsaw. You're supposed to, he is the villain of the franchise, but you're supposed to understand that he has his own like code and he sticks to his code. But in this first film,
psychopath, you know,
yeah, exactly. But in this first film, it's so not that. It's like they don't quite have a grasp on who he is as a character,
which I kind of like about it, to be honest.
I mean, like, I don't like that people try and take away a moral from any of these movies. Yeah, and I had a friend recently message and was like, I like that he, like, you know, picks bad people to kill. And I was like, are you getting these movies? Like, I didn't know if we're on the same page here.
Well, in Saw X, he's the good guy, though. So
yeah, and I think that is also a problem. But that's kind of why I like this movie, is because it's pretty clear that his like moral code is pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And like he actually just like is a bad person, and this movie understands that he might be like trying to show people how to appreciate their lives, but this movie understands that he's bad. And I don't know if the rest of them do.
Yeah. Well, and it happens with all the franchises, right? At a certain point, you start getting people who side more with the villains than the characters, and that's an issue that movies, you know, movie franchises like this, you shouldn't, you know, you have to be careful with that, because again, when the problem with that too is once you start writing to just the villain, then your other characters start becoming one-dimensional. You know, they just become, you know, archetypes or stereotypes or things like that, and it just stops making, you know, say what we will about some of the performances and some of the writing in this film, but we talked about it earlier, like that the characters, you know, Jigsaw aside, like Adam and Dr. Gordon also have this weird moral, you know, like gray area where it's like they're clearly not doing great things, but like are they is what's happening to them appropriate for the situation? And you know what, it's a much more fascinating film in that regard before you start getting into like you're bad, therefore trap, you know. And I think this does work better on that. But I think to get back to the question at hand, what doesn't work, again, it kind of is that those dialogue moments that just don't quite work. Your characters are both also kind of obnoxious at times. Yeah. Like there are moments where I don't really like Dr. Gordon, and not in an intentional way. Not like, oh, the script is telling you that this is a bad person. More just like they're just both really annoying at times.
Yeah, like Adam is so whiny and you know, he like talks about his shithole apartment and all this stuff, and I feel like with him, like he's just so dissatisfied with his life, and that's the reason why he's going to be killed. But like Homeboy's life literally could have been fixed if Jigsaw just shoved a job application under his door. Right. Like that would have been an
Domino's is hiring.
Yeah, like just straight up murdering the man.
He's probably happy to die. He's like, at least I get out of my shithole apartment.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and
pretty much.
Matt, you mentioned it earlier too. I think this movie also has a second act problem. in that it kind of starts to drag. It's around the cigarette scene.
Yes.
Like it's around there, it just kind of starts to drag, and you can feel the padding within the
It's
movie.
right before the clock hits 6 o'clock. Is where it's like, all right, come on, like, where are we going? And I kind of forgot about that until this most recent watch, because I do really like this movie, and I was like, oh, this part's really pulling me down a little bit.
To be honest, I fell asleep for about 5 minutes in there. So
Yeah, fair. I mean, yeah, it is kind of like that, but
I feel like
But everything else is cool.
how do we feel about some of the weird, like, screamy music that pops up a couple times during
Screaming music.
Yeah,
or,
I have
like,
feelings about that
rocky
because like
music,
they'll just
yeah.
slap some like thrash metal or like
Mhm.
just like
Oh, that's
screamo over, and that's how you know this scene is edgy. And I'm like, bro, like
No, that's another Wanism.
I know it's such a Wanism, but like I kind of just like giggled because I was like, God, it's just James Wan being James Wan, but I didn't need it.
yeah, I was like, it just doesn't really. I don't know.
This movie-
It felt like when you go into a haunted house on Halloween, and then you know the clowns jump out of the wall, and then there's like fucking Slipknot playing, and you're like, all right.
Wait, are we talking about Insidious or Saw?
Shut up! I knew you were thinking about
The
that.
answer is yes.
Yeah, this movie did not need any sort of need. I mean, again, that was a very early 2000s thing, which was like, do a needle drop in your film so we can sell the you know, the album, which is something they still do, but I feel like movies kind of pick and choose it more, which is like, if we're gonna go all out with like a soundtrack, it's gonna be like music after music after music after music, and they're all gonna be solid, versus like this was just like, throw a Korn song in there, and then we'll sell the soundtrack, and you're like, okay, weird choice, but
I made a lot of notes about things that I was like peeved by.
Oh, go off.
Go off.
Because I don't.
Okay.
I can say bad stuff, but I'm going to defend all of it also. So I'd rather hear some actual things you don't like.
So my beef here with Jigsaw, right? This man is terribly sick. You know, he's dying. You know, they have him in this bed, which you wouldn't believe the man if they didn't show the scene of Dr. Gordon telling him he has an inoperable brain tumor. If he told people he was dying, I wouldn't have believed him because he's such a untrustworthy character. But you're telling me that this man who is dying of cancer is building these contraptions. Like, I'm picturing Jigsaw in his house with his little fucking crafts, just like working on his little puppet. Like, how many trips to Joann's did this motherfucker make? And my one coworker, she's like, "Oh, he probably just found all that stuff." You know, my coworker Taylor and I. Yeah, and I'm like, "Girl, he had to go buy E6000. You don't stumble on some E6000 to glue shit together, you know?" Like,
in defense of this movie, though, I will say, I think the only trap that is that extreme in this one is the reverse bear trap. I think everything else is kind of just like, he threw some, like, put a cage together and threw some barbed wire in it and was like, there you go. Or like, you know, he's got like gas. What is it? That is it? Kerosene? Petroleum. Yes. In that room.
Petroleum jelly, whatever it is.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, and then Dr. Gordon Adam is just like, here's some chains and some hacksaws that I bought for, you know, $2.99 at Lowe's or whatever. So
I'm also going to say, like, if you're on your way out, if you're dying, like, fuck it, man. Spend your time however's going to bring you joy. Like, I'm not in defense of murdering people, but, like, if your little crafts is what's going to bring you joy at the end there, you do that.
If you want to waste money and terrorize the public at large, learn Magic the Gathering. Like, there's other ways
Yu-Gi-Oh!
To torture people.
You know, my blue eyes white dragon, you know, or...
So my husband actually just texted me. Apparently there is something he needs my assistance with. I hate to be that guy. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. We can continue the conversation, though. Is there anything else you want to say?
So he's like walking around in this cloak with the red, like the cloak that's also very like synonymous with this film, with the red stripes coming down the sides and everything. He's wearing this pig mask. This is the single-handed most suspicious man on earth. Like, there's no way, even if you were in the only city you can get away with doing this in is New York City, I feel like. If you're just walking around like that,
You could get away with it in Philly. You could
Okay.
definitely get away with it in Philly. I would be unfazed.
I see a guy walking around like that when I get on the train this morning.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, maybe it's because
Go
we're in
on the L,
Pittsburgh.
you'll see everyone.
And I love Philly.
Do they ever
Pittsburgh,
say
everyone knows each other, and we're like, why is John doing that?
do they ever say in the film, in any of the films, where it takes place, or is it just unnamed
No.
bad city?
It's the same.
Like,
It's the same city as Seven.
yeah, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Kat, did you
Well,
need to?
Yeah, I unfortunately would
away.
have to like leave, because I don't think.
We appreciate your time. I'm sorry you have to go.
No, I'm really sorry.
We're close to being done anyway, though, so we'll round
Yeah.
out with our theme talk, and then here I'll say one complaint that I think you'll enjoy though is this movie inspired escape rooms.
Yeah,
So that's the real crime. You know,
that's the real.
I looked, escape rooms weren't big until like 2007. So this and Cube.
He's
Yeah.
been inspiring arguments with suburban families. For
Actually, I think that's a pro.
Weirdest thing though, this movie inspires escape rooms. Escape rooms inspire the movie Escape Room, which is just a Saw ripoff.
it goes all the way to
Just
the top.
a giant
What-
circle. It's a
What
snake
is
eating its
happening?
tail.
Big Escape Room invented the Saw franchise.
There has to be a Saw escape room, right?
For sure.
I'm
You know,
sure.
there's got to
Yeah.
be one somewhere. That's
Someone
Now
did
is there an escape room movie themed escape room? That's the real
I don't think
question.
anyone saw that. Probably not.
There's two of them. Somebody had to see
yeah,
them.
they made two.
Game of
Yeah.
Champions or whatever it's
What
called.
the fuck?
Yeah, somebody thought that was apparently the first one. I think the first one made money because it was PG-13, so everybody went to go see it. And I didn't see it. I can't speak to it, but didn't look particularly great. So, but I don't know. Maybe it was decent enough to make a sequel. Apparently,
Did anyone think that the dude who's covered in like the pyro jelly and the glass on the floor and stuff, and they said it was because he was like insurance fraud, and I'm like, damn, these insurance companies have gotten intense. And they catch you slipping, man, dude.
You should watch the sixth one if you want to see more insurance company.
I would
stuff.
love to see someone from an insurance company get their
Oh,
due.
that's the entire theme.
Yeah.
That's the entire plot.
Love
6
that.
is great. 6 is a solid one.
Six is really good.
Yeah, really
Party.
good film. So,
All right, Cal, we have to drop off. Thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry this like happened unexpectedly.
No, it's fine. And
Life-
we'll talk to you again when we do Frank and Turkey. I'll
Frank and Turkey. Hell
spoil
yeah.
it for anyone that listens to both podcasts.
yes.
Lit. Bye.
Sounds
Okay.
good. See you, bye.
Well, folks, what's next?
I think if we talked about what didn't work,
Themes.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about
baby.
themes,
We're
which
like, what is this movie's purpose?
and
Hmm.
I have not been able to like put together what I actually think the purpose of this film is.
So I was like, I mean, there's the obvious of John's the morality police and is telling us what is right or wrong. But like, first of all, we're not stupid. We know cheating on our wife or partner is bad.
Right.
But what is especially interesting is that in the movie, it literally shows Gordon making the choice to stop cheating on his wife before he is put in the trap, and yet he still ends up in the trap. So then, what is the point now? Because he has made the choice to like be a better person.
Again, John is
partner.
a
But
petty
it is
bitch.
that John is a bitch.
And he's supposed to be though. John's like a petty little bitch, and that's why he's great. Like he is supposed to just be a like psychopath. Sorry,
Yeah.
I know that's not a real term, but like he is supposed to be a serial killer. He sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
And to the point that we have mentioned throughout this episode, just with like some of the storytelling, is like, what did Adam really do to deserve it? He didn't like his life. Boo hoo. We'd all be in the trap then, dog. Put me in. Sign me up.
Oh yeah.
see the
Also,
contraption dog.
like, why is Amanda's trap fair? Like, all she had to do was kill someone else, not hurt herself. So what is he really teaching her there?
So yeah,
Like, the logic that this man has while trying to be the morality police is off the hinges.
They-
And still, Lee Wynell and James Wan have said Jigsaw sees people as not appreciating their lives. He doesn't have their health. They aren't dying, and they're not doing anything with their lives. So he takes it upon himself to fix that. But
all right. So they don't
this
understand their own movie then.
yeah, and
Yeah.
if so, that interview was definitely after like a couple had come out. I don't know how many. So I don't know if it's just like now they're like looking back and trying to tie it all together with what they wrote in 2 and 3. But clearly that is not the purpose of the first movie. I feel like in the first movie we're supposed to think he's a butthole, and then the rest of them suddenly we're not. Like, the later movies, the purpose is just to be torture porn. Like, let's be real. That is their whole purpose.
It's the traps,
this movie,
right.
I don't know.
I think, in all honesty, it's a couple of college graduates who went, let's make 7 on a lower budget. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to, is it's just a couple guys with a lot of ambition. And, 7 is, again, a very nihilistic, like, the world is terrible kind of movie. And that's kind of its point is, but with this film, when you're like, what were they, like, maybe like 23, 24, 4 when they make this movie, if that, like, you think you know what the world is, but you really don't. You don't have like a ton of life experience. You're just kind of angry because you're angry. So I don't think I think it's a very surface level film, and I don't know if it's much deeper than that, in all honesty.
Yeah, it really might just be about the feeling. Because like when you say that, it's like, oh, these kids just made it. And then meanwhile, I'm saying, you know what? This is the closest we've gotten to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is insane that it at least made me feel that way. So maybe it was like, hey, we're going to make something that is grimy and gross and makes you feel that way. And that's it.
And the interesting thing, like we talk about, we talked earlier about 9/11 and the post, movies that came out, but they're also, I believe, both James Wan and Lee Wan-el are from Australia, correct? If I remember correctly, I believe they.
I do not know
James
that.
Wan is definitely from Australia, so I'm going to guess Wan-el probably is as well.
And so I wonder if that is a, obviously that was something that like changed the course of like the entire world, but like, is that same kind of nihilism coming out of, a world event, or did we just like reflect that because it was a film that came out in America? But you've got these two Australian filmmakers hitting this very important moment of this kind of like nihilistic, viewpoint on the world, and kind of this like frustration people were feeling or just kind of like the world is awful, and or what, whatever was kind of in the atmosphere at that time. And whether these guys intentionally hit it or not, it might be as simple as that. The theme is just that like life isn't fair, like
I like that read.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think sometimes like with a lot of the movies we covered, there is sometimes this like deeper theme or analysis,
or at least something we can pull from it, even if that wasn't intended. This one I struggled, but I like that.
But I like what you said. I feel like that kind of sums it up pretty well.
And it really did. It had just such influence. It's actually crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, think of all the films that came out afterwards that were trying to, like, you use the word, the phrase torture porn, but like, really, I don't think Saw. I mean, at a certain point, yes, they kind of just become their own, again, they're kind of a snake eating its own tail. It's kind of the same thing over and over, done more extreme. But like, really, it's all the copycat films that came out after this that were really trying to like push that, oh, people like seeing people do horrible, mutilate their bodies or whatever, so we're just going to do more movies like that. But like, this movie isn't that. Like we said, it's very much a very almost bloodless film. There is some gore, but it's very minor, and so it's just kind of a it's an interesting thing to look at when this film does get lumped in with that category a lot, and it's really not. It's it's a pretty good thriller is ultimately what it is. It's closer to something more. This is an extreme. It's not nearly as good as this, but it's closer to something more like Silence of the Lambs than it is something like Hostel, or something of that nature.
And Lee Wan-el has said, we noticed that the first Saw's traps and more visceral elements were being really championed and celebrated by the fans, so it was a natural progression towards that in the sequels. Saw 2, I think, does still have a lot of those aspects of a locked room thriller and the police hunting a serial killer, but the gore was increased. As for the third one, I think Saw 3 is one of the goriest mainstream films ever made, and I wrote that. That's a real badge of dishonor for me.
Yeah. I do find that that's something this film does very well that the other ones miss on, is it's like showing the reaction to the Trap is way better, and then showing like them piecing it together and like what it like the kind of sped up version is scarier and better than actually showing it. And I also think showing stuff off camera always works better. Like Gordon cutting through his leg is always going to be better if you show his face while he's doing it than actually showing it.
Yes.
I'm never going to be as affected by what I see on screen than what like my mind can do. So I feel like that's the big trick there that the other ones miss on, but I still like them. So what are you going to do?
I like the detective piece of it.
I agree. Fully agree. Yeah, that's actually what I think a lot of people watch these for, is they're kind of fun detective thrillers in a lot of ways that just get more and more insane.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're all kind of like that. They're all, like I said, they're part crazy serial killer movie and part police procedural. You know, and I think that's why you get this wide collection of people, you know, different audiences that like these movies. You know, some people like them for the trap, some people like them for the story, some people like them for the twist, some people like them for the procedural aspect, and that's probably why this franchise has endured as absolutely long as it has.
Yeah. There's a lot to like. Also a lot later to dislike, but that's okay. We'll cover those eventually.
Oh, you think so?
No, not all of them.
Hey, 2 is good.
I was going to say, before we get into rankings, or like ratings for this film, how do you feel like it compares to the others in the franchise? Since it's obviously talking about this movie is so tied to.
I've said for a long time I think it's my favorite of all of them. I do think Saw 2 could possibly be better than it.
I've only seen that once, but I know it was good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Mostly because, again, a bunch of people in the house, and I think the ending twist is one of my favorite of all the films of what's his name being in the box the whole time, you know? That's all. Or in the same.
Great twist. The acting is better in that film.
The needle pit.
The needle pit, yeah. Things are kind of ratcheted up to be they're violent, but they're not quite what we get, like you said, later on in like Saw 3 with like some of the extreme like torture scenes in those movies. Like it's more restrained, but it ups everything and ups the stakes just enough to make it feel more tense and more just kind of well crafted and put together. And I think a lot of that also has to do with the introduction of Darren Lynn Bousman coming in as director and like co-writer on that film too, because he breathes kind of like this extra bit of life into that franchise. It's just really definitely rewatch Saw 2. I look forward to your episode on it because I'll be curious to see what you think.
I'm also going to open myself up to some internet hate here and say that I really like Spiral.
I do too. So
a lot of people fucking hate Spiral. Like, when Saw 10 came out, I was like looking through Twitter with how people like ranked all of them, since everyone fucking loves Saw 10 and says it's as good or better than the original, which don't agree. But people were putting Spiral at like 9.
That's hilarious because Spiral's like possibly like the 3rd best film in this franchise or 4th. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
in my opinion.
It's at least trying something slightly different with the franchise, and like I want to give them credit for that. Plus, you get some really good, you know, name actors in it as well.
Yeah, I think it's Chris Rock's best performance in a movie that I've seen.
Yeah, it's really solid. I mean,
I don't know if that's much, but
I probably, in my personal ranking, I probably wouldn't rank it like as high as some other ones just for like nostalgia or just like movies I really enjoy. But I think it's way better. It's way better than some of the other ones. Like to me, I think 7 and 5 are the worst in the franchise.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. Jigsaw's pretty bad. I don't know.
Jigsaw. The only one I haven't seen yet is 10. So it's interesting to hear. No, you're okay. You didn't spoil anything, but it's interesting to hear your take on it because I have heard so many people say it was good, and so I like hearing both flips of the coin.
Good.
It's good because Tobin Bell's in it.
Yeah, it's good, but it's not like the best.
And because like Tobin Bell's cool, and you actually like they made him the actual main character. Which is really fun because he is talented. As like an actor, so, yeah.
Well, I think we can wrap it up by giving our ratings for this movie. So
we do out of 10 ratings. Yep. So
they could be decimaled, and the ratings are arbitrary anyway.
Yes,
so.
we say it every time. They're all bullshit. So say whatever you want.
Okay. All right. I think, and I thought a lot about this. All right, if except for 10, which I'm ruling out right now because I have to leave room for other ones at the top. I'm gonna give this an 8. I think Saw 2 is better, but I think this is a solid film with some major flaws, but I think all the positives way outweigh it, and it's so influential, like you have to give it its due. Like you have to give it a lot of credit. So I think an 8 out of 10 is fair for the first Saw.
I was also thinking about giving it an 8.
Is that what you're going with?
8 on the nose, yeah.
Yes, I'm laughing because I was going to go just slightly lower. I was between 8 and 7.5, and I think our discussion has me pushed to 7.5. It's great. There are just so many good horror films, though, that I still put above it. And I feel like weird putting it on pars with, I think, some of the other 8s I have. But maybe I'm just cranky today. I don't know. So 7.5 for me.
Just cranky.
It's very good. Everyone should see it. 7.5.
Definitely. That's a solid score. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for being on here, Ryan. And
Shine you out again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much for having us. I mean, this was a blast, and we look forward to having you on our show. So everyone, stay tuned for that because we'll be having a fun episode coming out. I think that's going to be a heck of a good time. So thank you so much for having us. We really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Of course. Give us your name again and where we can find you.
Yeah. So Cat and I's podcast, or Cat and Meat, whatever the proper grammar is for that. Our podcast is Twice the Terror. You can find us on Spotify and all kinds of other places, your typical, podcasting platforms. But I think our big one is YouTube. You can find us on youtube.com/@Twice the Terror. So the @ symbol @Twice the Terror. That's our main channel. But yeah, Spotify's probably the next big one. So check us out there. It's video podcast, but you can listen to it if you want, whatever you prefer. So
perfect. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Ready to be done, Hannah?
Yep.
You good? Say your thing.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Matt Hannah.
Thanks for joining.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning into Horror Hour with the Hannas. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and follow for additional content on TikTok or Instagram at Horror Hour with the Hannas. If you like the podcast, please leave a positive review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!